Good morning. This is the time and place set for the investigation into the Energy Choice Initiative, opened as docket number 17-10001. My name is Joe Reynolds, and I'm the chairman of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, and I'm the presiding officer over these hearings. We're waiting for just a few folks in Las Vegas who I believe are still signing in, and then we'll begin. And for those who may be listening, we are attempting to correct some of the static that you hear right now. And I think we got that corrected. Thank you. And, or at least we did for a second. And if you'll just bear with us for a minute. I think the folks in Las Vegas are signed in. If I could ask our technical folks here in the Vegas office, I believe some static we're hearing through the microphone system is coming from the Vegas microphones. Can we either turn down those Vegas microphones until we have speakers that are ready to speak? Thank you. And again, I apologize for the brief delay on that. Again, my name is Joe Reynolds. I'm the presiding officer over this matter. It's a docket number 17-1001. Today's hearing will be more procedural in nature. I intend to give an overview of where I intend to go with the workshop portions of this investigatory docket. The real substantive discussions I intend to start next Tuesday at 10 a.m. January 16th. But before I go further, I would like to say a brief introduction and lay the landscape of what these proceedings are about and also what they are not about. What I love about Nevada is that we like to dream big, and we like to think outside the box, and that we're not afraid of big ideas. We can do the same with energy, and Nevada is on the cusp of energy leadership on numerous fronts, and we can't be afraid of change. But along with being dreamers, Nevadans also have to be realists and pragmatists. And we just don't talk about big ideas. We need to draw the plans, find the money, and work together to make them real. In order to do this, from my viewpoint, responsibly, we have to be honest about what we know, and what we don't know, and what we need to know, and to make that future a reality. Promises aren't enough. hoping that something will work out is not enough. Rhetoric is not enough. Talking points and presentations are not enough. We need to roll up our sleeves and have a conversation, a dialogue, in what we're looking at with this proposed change and constitutional amendment. Before I go further, I'd like to read that amendment into the record, so it's clear where we're at. This is the Energy Choice Initiative Proposed Amendment, Article 1 to the Nevada State Constitution. 1, a declaration of policy. The people of the state of Nevada declare that it is the policy of this state that electricity markets be open and competitive so that all electricity customers are afforded meaningful choices among different providers, and that economic and regulatory burdens be minimized in order to promote competition and choices in the electric energy market. This act shall be liberally construed to achieve this purpose. Section 2, Rights of Electric Energy. Effective upon the date set forth in subsection 3, every person, business, association of persons, or businesses, state agency, political subdivision of the state of Nevada, or any other entity in Nevada has the right to choose the provider of its electric utility service, including but not limited to selecting providers from a competitive retail electric market, or by producing electricity for themselves or in association with others, and shall not be forced to purchase energy from one provider. Nothing herein shall be construed as limiting such persons or entities' rights to sell, trade, or otherwise dispose of electricity. Section 3, Implementation. Not later than July 1st, 2023, the legislature shall provide by law for provisions consistent with this act to establish an open, competitive retail electric energy market, to ensure that protections are established that entitle customers to safe, reliable, and competitively priced electricity, including but not limited to provisions that reduce costs to customers, protect against service disconnections and unfair practices, and prohibit the grant of monopolies and exclusive franchises for the generation of electricity. The legislature need not provide for the deregulation of or distribution of electricity in order to establish a competitive market consistent with this act. Subsection B, upon enactment of any laws by the legislature pursuant to this act before July 1st, 2023, and not later than that date, any laws, regulations, regulatory orders, or other provisions which conflict with this act will be void. However, the legislature may enact legislation consistent with this act that provides for an open electric energy market in part or in whole before July 1st, 2023. Nothing herein shall be construed to invalidate Nevada's public policies on renewable energy, energy efficiency, and environmental protection, or limit the legislature's ability to impose such policies on participants in the competitive electricity market. So, Section 4, Severability. Should any part of this act be declared invalid, or the application thereof to any person, thing, is held invalid, such invalidity shall not affect the remaining provisions or application of this act, which can be given effect without the invalid provision or application, and to this end, the provisions of this act are declared to be severable. This subsection shall be construed broadly to preserve and effectuate the declared purpose of this act. And before we go further, I would take notice that this amendment to our state's constitution was approved in November 2016 by approximately 783,000 Nevada voters and disapproved by approximately 299,000 Nevada voters, roughly a ratio of 72% to 28%. A little procedural history is about 3 months after this ballot passed for the first time, Governor Sandoval issued Executive Order 2017-3, which created the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice to examine issues as the change in laws that may occur, ensuring all Nevadans have reasonable access to open markets, protecting the public from any rate increases that may occur from the initiative, preventing ratepayers in Nevada energy from possible economic losses, promoting innovation and development of technology, ensuring Nevada becomes an energy exporter. and to do so as soon as reasonably practical or possible. And in that executive order, Governor Sandoval directed the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice to report back to him by July of 2018. In September of 2017, Lieutenant Governor Hutchison, who is the chair of the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice, did send me a letter and requested that I open an investigatory docket at the Public Utilities Commission on 4 topics. And in October of 2017, I did issue a notice regarding the investigatory docket, which is given this docket number, and asked any interested stakeholders and members of the public provide written comments by December of 2017 on the following 4 issues. First is a prospective timeline for the implementation of the initiative. Second are amendments or repeals to any current Nevada laws, policies, or existing energy programs that may be necessary to establish an open and competitive electricity market in Nevada. Third, options reasonably available to Nevada in designing and establishing a wholesale electric service market, including but not limited to reliance on existing bilateral markets, establishment of contractual relationships and possible governance structures with multi-state independent system operators that we refer to as ISOs, or regional transmission organizations that we refer to as RTOs. And 4, options reasonably available to Nevada in designing and establishing a competitive retail electric service market, including but not limited to relative pros and cons, the best practices and structure for Nevada, and options for a service provider of last resort. Included in this public notice, I also placed a 5th issue, and it's the issue that as chairman of our state's commission, is the top utility regulator in this state, I believe is the most important issue surrounding any examination of this amendment. And that is to examine the potential short and long-term financial benefits and risks to the residents and businesses of Nevada that may be associated with implementing the initiative, and the best strategy for maximizing any benefits and mitigating any risks. That is truly, for me, the fundamental question. Will this amendment lower our utility bills for the average families and businesses? And that's something that we need to look at, because from that question, I think, flows all other answers to the other questions that we may be looking at. The underlying premise of when I hear choice is that it will equate to lower costs. For me, and what I understand, that could be true, or it could not be true. And what I've learned so far is the difference is how it is implemented, and that is critical to success or failure. That's important to me as our state's regulator, because energy infrastructure and our reliance on energy is not like other commodities. It is different than telecommunications. It is different than cable. It's different than internet. It's different than things we buy at the store. When my 14-year-old daughter might think it's life or death if her iPhone doesn't work or the internet doesn't work, it isn't. But if the electricity doesn't work, it can be. It's necessary to our air conditioning, our refrigeration. We don't get to the iPhones, we don't get to the internets or the computers if we don't have electricity. And even more concerning, is relevant to our state's economy. We live in the state that has the City of Lights, Las Vegas, that needs to stay open 24 hours a day, every day of the year, always. It's essential to our economy. It's also essential to medical equipment, public safety issues. And so we cannot be in a situation ever where the lights go out and they don't work. And where we are right now is we do have a unique opportunity to look to the future, to help create the future. And the only way for me, in my view, to do that and do that responsibly is to work through it. And I'd like to clear the air a little bit. These workshops are not contested legal proceedings. Nobody is a party except for the commission itself. Participation is wholly voluntarily. NV Energy is not on trial. The ballot initiative is not on trial. My interests have nothing to do with whether someone supports or opposes this ballot initiative. Everyone gets their vote in November. I get one vote, just like everyone else who lives in Nevada. This is not intended to be an opinion poll or a situation where someone comes in and expresses their political support for or against it. What I'm looking for is answers. What I'm looking for is information. What I'm looking for is ideas. I respect immensely the proponents of the ballot initiative. I respect immensely the opponents of the ballot initiative. And what I have seen so far in some of the written comments we've received is many folks are neutral at this point. What I'm here to do as a presiding officer of this matter is to understand the initiative and think of any solutions to any problems that may arise before this becomes permanently enshrined in our state constitution. No state has ever done this pursuant to a constitutional amendment before. And no state has ever done this without robust input from its state's Public Utilities Commission. These workshops are not intended to be a forum for more presentations. There will be no more additional PowerPoints. There's other forums when those occur, and that's not what these workshops are about. Again, what I'm looking for is answers to questions for the people of the state of Nevada who might be at work right now, who don't belong to an association, who don't have lawyers, who don't have lobbyists, and whose only interest is like mine and my family's, keeping my bills low, keeping my lights on. So far, the following entities have submitted written or reply comments. While I read this into the record, please bear with me, but I think it is important to note what entities have filed comments so far. This is a public dialogue, and so I'm going to read this list. The AARP, CNA's Military Advisory Board, the National Energy Marketers Association, the City of Las Vegas, Calpine Energy Solutions Corporation, Arizona Independent Scheduling Administrators Association, Valley Electric Association, the International Brotherhood of Workers Local Union 396 and 1245, Arizonans for Electrical Choice and Competition, Interwest Energy Alliance, Drift Marketplace, the Southwestern Energy Efficiency Project, otherwise known as SWEEP, Ceres BICEP Network, Infinite Energy, Mount Wheeler Power, the Retail Supply Energy Association, California Independent System Operator, as we know as CAISO, Nevada Power and Sierra Pacific Power, as we know as NV Energy, the Colorado River Commission, Arizona Competitive Power Alliance, Americans for Electricity Choice, the Smart Energy Alliance, White Plain County Board of Commissioners, the Regulatory Operations Staff of the Public Utilities Commission, which I note is an independent arm of the Commission, the Environmental Defense Fund, the Office of the Bureau of Consumer Protection for the Nevada Attorney General's Office, the Christian Coalition, the Western Resource Advocates, the Advanced Energy Economy, Nevada Rural Electric Association, the Solar Energy Industries Association, the Renew Nevada Coalition, the Natural Resources Defense Council, NVE Stop Smart Meters, the PUCN Watchdogs, the Energy Choice Initiative, Barrick Mining, Vote Solar, and the Clean Energy Project, as well as Mr. Forrester. And of all these comments, I very much appreciate Mr. Forrester's comments. He's just a concerned citizen and not associated with any group, and wrote a letter expressing his thoughts to the commission. I count about 40 total commenters. Those comments are carefully being reviewed, and the purpose of these workshops is not to repeat what is already written in the record. We have it. So we're reviewing that, and so this forum again with a court reporter is not to just rehash that over. What I need help, and I'm asking for everyone in this room's help, is to understand what we need to do, understand what we're looking at, and how to kind of wrap the arms around the future of this initiative. I have a lot of questions, and something that I have learned in the energy world is we spend a lot of time looking at the future, but we can never predict it for certain. We can only look at the past, look to the present, and identify what we don't know, acknowledge it, and then look the future straight in the eye with our eyes wide open. Questions I intend to ask during these workshops may make the proponents of the initiative uncomfortable. The questions I may ask may also make the opponents of this initiative uncomfortable. But I'd ask to please understand that my intent is to figure this out, not to throw any curveballs, not to play any kind of gotcha. But if we don't ask the hard questions, we won't be able to hit the ground running and make smart decisions and smart choices about how to move this forward. If I didn't ask the tough questions, I wouldn't be doing my job. And one thing I can say from my viewpoint, again, as chair of the commission, is that nobody from any side that I understand wants this to fail. Nobody wants failure for Nevada. The procedure that I'm intending in going forward with these workshops is to be as follows. On January 16th at 10 a.m., we are going to look into what laws need to be amended and repealed, which is actually issue 2 on the notice. In order to do that, we first have to examine what the language of the proposed amendment means. I've read the initiative many times, and I have questions about its scope. Such as we often, at least in broader discussions, talk about deregulation. Does this initiative mean full deregulation, or is it more of re-regulation? Are we eliminating the current structure, or are we simply restructuring? And what parameters does that entail? And I think we need to look at the parameters of this language and then go forward to understand what laws need to be amended or repealed and rewritten based on that. On January 17th at 10 a.m., we need to look into the wholesale market. The key focus in my mind is, what does the ISO or RTO look like? Do we look towards CAISO in California? Do we look at creating our own? Do we look at NVE, who's currently has some of those functions and responsibilities? Do we look south? Do we look east? What are those options? What do the pros and cons of each of those options look like? And on January 18th, we'll look to the retail market. One of the overriding concerns in my analysis is who will be a provider of last resort. And that essentially means is who will provide service in one respect to the people who are hard to provide service to, either because of their geographic location, because of their credit history. Everyone needs electricity. We have a new energy Bill of Rights in our state law that will apply to all Nevadans, or does apply now to all Nevadans. We need to make sure that those Nevadans always have service and always have that option for service. NV Energy has stated that they are not interested and do not have the intent to become a provider of last resort. So what that means is we need to figure out who can provide that function. Can that be set forth as a requirement to entry into the marketplace. What is a standard service offer need to look like? To me, that's kind of the bottom safety net of who the provider of last resort is, and that is an overriding concern. And how do we do that? How does the state create that kind of a market? And looking for ideas and looking for that conversation and those suggestions. On January 19th, we will look at costs and intend to do so from all angles, both the benefits that this may bring and also the risks that this may bring. There is approximately $800 million, I understand, of potential stranded assets at play. There is potentially $5 to $7 billion in additional liabilities that can be at play, depending on also the impacts to some of our co-ops and municipalities, potentially billions more, how this impacts them. I've heard from concerns in the written comments that this may eliminate jobs. I've also heard that this may create jobs. And so to take a closer look at that, to make sure that whatever structure is chosen going forward will best ensure that the intent of this legislation is achieved. And also, I think important in that conversation is how do we pay for it? Money is tight in this state. We have trouble at times paying for our education system, and if we are looking at creating a new state agency, training new employees, having new computer systems, new infrastructure, who's going to pay for it, how are we going to pay for it, and how much we're looking at. How much money would we need in terms of education, which I've heard in the governor's committee is a key component to achieving success in this type of transition. Where are we going to get the money for that, and who's going to pay for it? Those are questions in my mind that we need to look at. On January 22nd, on that Monday, tend to finish up any business from this first round, and if some of the days bleed over into the next Monday, we will wrap those up, or if we're able to, we'll take a break. On Tuesday, January 23rd, the workshop will focus on follow-up from the legal questions from the week before. On the Wednesday, January 24th, will be follow-up on the wholesale market from the week before. On the 25th will be follow-up on the retail market from the week before. And on the 26th will be follow-up on costs from the week before. On Monday, January 29th, we will take up the issue of the timeline. I don't think it's logical to discuss the timeline until we first determined what options may be taken for what may be done. And so, in my mind, the timeline is the last question to answer as opposed to the first one. Pursuant to this language, we are looking under a constitutional timeline of January 1st, 2023, but within those provisions, the legislature will have the option of passing legislation as soon as 2019. Because that's about a year away, in the state we need to hit the ground running. And so to take a look at that and how that would play out in this analysis is something that's very important. Something the governor is looking for is to try to get these answers as soon as possible. And so that's something we'll look at. And on January 30th, any closing remarks that any members of the public or stakeholders would like to make. I plan to reopen the written comment period from January 31st to February 16th for follow-up following the workshops for any interested members of the public who would like to add additional comments following what we've discussed at these workshops. The order of the workshops each day intend to be in 3 phases, and I intend to ask a lot of questions. As I stated earlier, this is not a contested case. There are no parties. In what this is an opportunity in a workshop to get questions answered from anyone who is interested in attending these workshops, either in Carson City or Las Vegas. When I ask a question, I would ask anyone who's interested, able to provide an answer, to step up to the microphone, introduce themselves, state what organization they work for, and try to provide that answer so that we have a conversation. It's a 2-way dialogue as opposed to a 1-way dialogue. Everything that we are stating is being transcribed by our court reporter, and so will become a part of a record. Drawn out speeches, political comments, disparaging comments, or non-responsive comments will be cut off. This isn't the time and place for that. The Public Utilities Commission has its bi-weekly agenda meetings where everyone gets 3 minutes before and after at those meetings pursuant to law to express those types of comments. That is not what these meetings are about or what they're for. After the questioning period, we'll also open up the mics to anyone in attendance that day who would like to provide additional comments on the topic of the day, and also any suggestions on questionings that I have missed that need to be explored further. And then the third part, daily, will ask for further follow-up. And I'd like to just state again, this is an investigation into what the ballot initiative means and how to get it done. It's intended to create a roadmap to identify decision points, options, discussion, to assist the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice going forward, as well as the Legislative Committee on Energy pursuant to Assembly Bill 452 that was passed last spring. It's also, though, for the public to assist my next door neighbor, and as well to assist me in understanding what we're doing. And I think this conversation is exciting, it's important, and we really need to look at how to get it done should this pass. I would ask anyone to put their politics aside when they come to the microphone, put any ill will aside, and let's get things done, because I think that's what Nevadans do best. I'll be issuing a written order outlining the procedures going forward regarding what I discussed today. And with that, I would like to open up the floor to any comments from any members in attendance. First in Carson City, I'd like to limit those comments to 3 minutes and have those comments relevant to the investigatory docket. If you intend to come up here and state how much you dislike the Public Utilities Commission, I would state and ask you to refrain from that, because this is not the time and the place. You could do that tomorrow morning at our public agenda meeting at 10 a.m. And so first I'll open this up to Carson City. Is there any member of the public who would like to give any comments at this time?
Morning, for the record, Fred Volz. The one issue...
And Mr. Volz, you are associated with the PUC and Watchdogs, correct?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm a private citizen, I'm a ratepayer, and I have grave concerns about what has been going on and what will be going on, so that's why I'm here. And just as a point of reference, you were listing a long group of folks who made comments. I also made comments, but you didn't mention that in the record, so I'd like to correct that right now.
Okay.
But speaking to your issue of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, the one thing that still has not been produced by anybody, and you didn't mention it for your agenda, where is the cost model? who is going to create that, what is it going to look like, and how is it going to work. That all needs to be specifically addressed. You can't just cost out individual components of this proposal and come to some conclusion. You have to put it into some sort of logical format that can be analyzed and decisions made about what approach is the best, whether it's the RTO versus ISO or some other factor. Thank you.
Thank you, and I think that is a good suggestion. Anyone else from the public in Carson City that would like to give any comment at this time?
Thank you, Chairman. Robert Johnston for Western Resource Advocates. And I just had, and I don't know if this is appropriate, I had just a clarification question with respect to the procedural schedule you've outlined. As you're aware, this has been calendared on fairly short notice. And if for example, you were interested in attending and participating in the questions and comment on a particular issue, wholesale market or retail market, but were unable to attend the first week, would that interested participant still be able to attend the second week and in effect play catch up, review the transcript from the first week's session and come in and make their points or weigh in on the questions asked of the chair?
No, thank you for that question, and the answer is yes. The purpose of this is to be inclusive, and part of the reason why I'm doing a repeat week is for that reason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Excuse me, I think our court reporter has a statement. I understand. I think our court reporter mentioned that the transcripts won't be available by then. We understand that. Thank you.
Understood. Then we catch up otherwise.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from Carson City who would like to give any comment? Hearing and seeing none, is there anyone in Las Vegas who would like to step to the microphone and make any comments?
Thank you. For the record, my name is Barry Gold. I'm the Director of Government Relations for AARP Nevada. AARP is very pleased that the chair has included cost as part of this workshop. Any measurement of success that we're going to look at for energy restructuring has to include cost. Cost is a measure of success. Choice is not the measure of success. Cost is the true measure, and AAR appreciates the chairman including that in this workshop. Thank you.
Thank you. And if I can ask the folks at the volume to maybe turn down just a little bit up here. Is there anyone else from Las Vegas who would like to make any comment at this time?
Good morning, Angel DeFazio. I'd like to request that...
Ms. DeFazio, before you begin, are you with the organization, the PUC and Watchdogs?
Right now, I'm representing myself as a private citizen.
So, but I just wanted to ask you, are you a member of the PUC and Watchdogs?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, please.
I'd like to have you deviate from your normal, normally the proceedings are only available online when they're active. Due to the enormity of this docket, I would like to request that you archive the workshops for people who have to work or cannot attend. And you mentioned that the transcripts are not going to be available for a while. So if people want to watch it, they could do it off hours, and I think this deviation is worth it due to the financial and overall impact of this docket.
No, and thank you for that question. We don't have the technology right now to store the streamed recordings of this, but with respect to your concerns about memorializing the conversations, That's why we do have a court reporter transcribing this like any official judicial or quasi-judicial proceeding would be transcribed, and we do that under the same time frames as any other similar proceeding. Also, for anyone who would like to get information on anything that's been filed, that can be available on the PUCN's website. And again, you just look for docket 17-10001, and all the comments that have been submitted, all orders that have been submitted, all notices that have been filed are available to the public to review.
But
Thank you for that.
the problem is we have 25% of the population who are low income, and to get a copy of the transcript, they have to pay, so they're being disadvantaged at all ends. So I just wanted to...
I appreciate Ms. DeFazio. I appreciate that concern, but that concern you're raising is no different than any other proceeding that goes on by other agencies in the state, in that we do have this being transcribed. So thank you for your comments today. Are there any other members of the public who would like to give a comment in Las Vegas?
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Jennifer Taylor here. I'm a member of the Committee on Energy Choice and the chair of the Innovation and Technology and Renewable Energy Development Technical Working Group. And I just wanted to ask you a quick procedural question on time frame for any days of the hearings. I have a hearing on January 16th at 1 p.m. and I wanted to see if there was an end time to that 10 a.m. start time for that first day of hearings.
No, I mean, the end time is, depends on who shows up, and how long the discussions go forward. You know, part of my mind, I don't know if I'll be in an empty room or have a full room, or if I'll ask some questions and no one will come up to the microphone and attempt to answer, or there'll be a number of folks. I work for the state. I work for the taxpayers. I'm here as long as there is a dialogue going on in the workshops for those days. But to answer, again, no specific end time.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to check in on that for knowing how to handle my committee meeting on the 16th. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Are there any other members of the public in Las Vegas at this time who would like to give any comment? Hearing and seeing none, I'll take it back up to Las Vegas. I mean to Carson City, excuse me. And I do have a list of the sign-in sheet, and anyone who may not have signed in, either in Carson City or Las Vegas, I would ask to do so. These sign-in sheets are a part of the record in this case of who's been in attendance, what entities are in attendance, and we'll have those for each day of the workshop. I do have some folks who have checked whether they're interested in speaking at the proceeding, and I want to clarify with them whether they intend that they'll be speaking at some point in the workshop, or whether they would like to speak or say anything during this comment period today. So I'd ask again, just anyone who would like to speak at this time in Carson City, please feel free to do so. And I'm hearing silence. So with that, thank you for everyone showing up today. This is important work. Again, I plan to roll up my sleeves and take a look at this. I'm looking for answers and I'm looking for understanding. No intent whatsoever to be in a position to give a thumbs up or a thumbs down on this initiative, but I am looking for information. And after the workshops and the written comments, as I stated to Lieutenant Governor Hutchison, we'll be preparing a report for hopefully that the Governor's Committee on Energy Choice, the legislature, and anyone else who's interested we'll be able to look at, to at least move this conversation forward and serve as a roadmap for future discussions and dialogue. In undertaking this investigatory workshop, I'd also just like to say, at the end of the day, it's the legislature that makes the laws, not the commission. So I look at placing the Public Utilities Commission as a resource to assist our legislature in making decisions, as well as any other leaders with respect to the issues of interpretation, because we're dealing with a potential constitutional amendment. At the end of the day, it's the 7 justices of the Nevada Supreme Court who may ultimately decide what provisions mean or don't mean. And but with that in mind, still need to have this analysis go forward. And so I thank everybody for being in attendance today here in Carson City, as well as in Las Vegas, and for those who may be listening over the internet. And I'll hopefully see everyone next Tuesday. So thank you, and this concludes the meeting for today.